My stepmom gave me fake plane tickets so I couldn't attend her and my dad's wedding. She didn't see the ending coming. When my soon-to-be stepmother offered to cover my travel to the destination wedding, it seemed like a generous gesture, one that made me feel cautiously hopeful about blending our families. But that hope shattered during a humiliating scene at the airport that exposed the truth. In the fallout, family loyalties were tested, secrets unraveled, and I learned the power of speaking up when it matters most. I'm Isabel, 23, and just last month, my dad, Jonathan, got remarried. His fiancée, now wife, Patricia, had been around for a few years. We had never really connected in any meaningful way. On the surface, she was always polite. When my dad was around, she'd turn on this warm, polished charm. The kind of charm you'd expect from someone who's hosted one too many charity brunches. She'd compliment my shoes in passing, laugh politely at my jokes, and occasionally make small talk about my job. But whenever it was just the two of us, something shifted. Her smile would grow thinner, her voice cooler. She had this way of slipping in subtle jabs, little comments that could pass as innocent but felt like reminders of where I stood. Sometimes she asked questions that seemed harmless, but always left me second-guessing myself. It was the kind of behavior that didn't leave a mark, just a lingering feeling that something was off. And if I ever tried to bring it up or confront her, I knew she'd twist it. She was smart. She could make me seem dramatic or paranoid with just a few well-placed words. Still, it was my dad's wedding. I wasn't going to let any of that get in the way of supporting him. I had already decided that I would go, show up with a smile, and be present for him. Their actual registration, the legal part, was going to happen the day before the big event. Just the two of them and a couple of witnesses. The ceremony and reception were planned for the next afternoon, with the full guest list in attendance. Show up, smile, support dad is, I told myself in the mirror one morning. Maybe you and Patricia can finally find some common ground. About a month before the ceremony, an email from Patricia popped into my inbox. The subject line read, "Travel details for all guests." I remember saying out loud, "Oh boy," as I opened it. I was already preparing myself for something overly detailed or controlling, but instead I found something unexpected. The message began. "Since it's an out-of-state wedding, Jonathan and I have decided to cover the travel costs for all guests. We want to make it easy for everyone to celebrate with us." I blinked at the screen, reading it again. That was generous and expensive. More generous than I ever would have expected from Patricia. I picked up my phone right away and texted my dad. "Wow, I just saw the email. Thank you so much. That's really kind, Dad." He sent back a thumbs-up emoji and a red heart. As I scrolled further through the email, I saw that Patricia had already attached an e-ticket for my flight. It looked official. My name was there, along with the airline, flight numbers, departure and arrival times, and even a seat assignment. But at the very bottom of the email, one line stood out. "I got a special deal by booking through my travel agent, so please don't call the airline or make changes. It could mess up the group rate." That was the first small red flag. Something about it didn't sit right with me, but I pushed the feeling down. I didn't want to be difficult, not right before the wedding. I told myself it was probably just part of booking in bulk or through some agent-only deal. So instead of questioning it, I responded with gratitude. I texted Patricia, "Thank you so much, Patricia. I can't wait to celebrate." She replied with a smiley face emoji and a champagne glass. The weeks leading up to the wedding were filled with all the usual chaos. Work deadlines piled up, and no matter how much laundry I did, there always seemed to be more. I spent several weekends searching for a dress, something elegant, appropriate for the occasion, but not too flashy. I didn't want it to seem like I was trying to draw attention or compete with the bride. Whenever I talked to my dad on the phone during those weeks, he sounded lighter than he had in years. I could tell he was happy. My parents had divorced when I was a kid, and even though my dad and I remained close, there had always been a weight to him, a quiet sadness he carried around. But lately, that seemed to be lifting. "You're going to love the venue, Izzy," he said one night over the phone, his voice full of warmth and excitement. "They've got string lights everywhere. You always loved those when you were little." I smiled, holding the phone to my ear, picturing it. "I remember all my birthday parties in the backyard. You strung them up even when it rained." He laughed softly. "You made me do it, Izzy." Hearing that made me pause. It reminded me that no matter how I felt about Patricia, this moment was important to him. I saved Patricia's email in a folder labeled Wedding, just to keep everything in one place. I even printed the e-tickets and folded them neatly, tucking them into the front sleeve of my carry-on bag, right next to my boarding essentials. I didn't want to rely entirely on my phone. Too many things could go wrong last minute. Dead battery, lost signal. So a paper backup felt smart. The plan was simple. Fly out the morning of the ceremony, check into the hotel, change into my dress, and meet the family in time for pre-wedding photos. I had it all timed out to the minute. I'd picked a travel outfit carefully, something comfortable but polished, a dress that wouldn't wrinkle in the seat, with a jacket to layer on top in case the plane was chilly. I even did my makeup before leaving, just light enough to look natural but put together. I wanted to arrive looking calm and confident. I wanted to do everything right. That morning, I felt a mix of nerves and excitement. I woke up early, triple-checked my bag, and grabbed a coffee on the way out. With my suitcase in one hand and my cup in the other, I walked into the airport thinking, okay, let's do this. The check-in kiosks were already buzzing with people. The usual airport hum filling the air, rolling suitcases, coffee slurps, and distant boarding calls. I found an open kiosk and set down my cup. Then I typed in my name and the confirmation code exactly as it appeared in Patricia's email. Beep. No reservation found. I blinked at the screen. That was strange. I frowned, leaned in closer, and typed it again. Slower this time, double-checking each letter and number. I hit enter. Same message. A small knot formed in my stomach. My palms started to feel a little clammy. I looked around the terminal as if the answer might just appear around me. People were breezing through the line, boarding passes printing, bags being tagged. Still holding on to a small shred of calm, I grabbed my suitcase and made my way to the airline counter. There was a short line and I waited my turn, scrolling back through Patricia's email to make sure I hadn't missed anything. The e-ticket was still there. The itinerary, flight numbers, times, all looked legit. I couldn't imagine what could have gone wrong. When I reached the counter, a woman with a navy blue blazer and a badge that read Marlene smiled and greeted me. "Morning, darling," she said kindly. "Let's see what we've got here. ID, please?" I handed her my license and she began typing. Her eyes flicked over her screen and then her expression changed, just slightly. Her smile didn't disappear, but it faded at the edges. Her fingers paused. "That's strange," she said softly, mostly to herself. My pulse quickened. "What's strange?" I asked. "Is something wrong?" She looked up at me with caution in her eyes. "This ticket isn't valid," she said gently. "There's no record of you on this flight, or any flight today under this booking." I blinked. That can't be right. Marlene continued typing, double-checking. "Are you sure your details were punched in correctly? Maybe it was booked under a different last name?" No, it's under Isabel Turner," I said, my voice a little shaky. "My stepmom booked. She sent me the confirmation and everything." She gave me a sympathetic look. "Ma'am, this confirmation code doesn't appear to be real," she said. "It's not in our system. That's strange," I said, digging into my carry-on. I pulled out the printed itinerary and handed it to her. "This is what she sent me. I'm flying to Denver for a wedding today." Marlene looked over the document, her eyes scanning the page quickly. Then she shook her head. "I'm really sorry," she said, "but this isn't a valid ticket. The confirmation number doesn't exist in our system. It's just random letters and numbers. This hasn't been issued by us or any of our travel agency partners." I felt myself smile, but it was a tight, nervous kind of smile. Not real, not relaxed. "There has to be a mistake," I said quickly. "She said a travel agent booked it. Maybe it's under a group code or something?" "If it were a group booking," Marlene said calmly, "I would still see your name here. It would be connected to the group, but I'm not seeing anything. The confirmation code doesn't match any format we use." I stared at her, the words not quite sinking in. It felt like I was standing still while the airport kept moving around. "I'm really sorry," she said again, softer now. "But I need to call security. We have to treat this as possible ticket fraud." My head snapped up. "Fraud?" I repeated, my voice louder than I meant. "No, wait, I'm just trying to get to my dad's wedding. I swear I didn't. I'm not. It's just procedure, honey," Marlene said, holding up a hand. She wasn't unkind, but her eyes were firm. Within minutes, 2 airport security officers approached, a tall man with a calm face and a woman who looked like she had dealt with this kind of thing before. Her expression was steady, not accusatory. "Ma'am, could you step over here?" the man said. I nodded, trying to keep it together. My suitcase rolled awkwardly beside me as I followed them a few feet away from the counter. I could feel people staring. I heard someone in line mutter, "Another scammer," under their breath. My cheeks burned. I wanted to disappear. The male officer asked, "Where did you get this ticket?" I looked at him and said the truth. Clear and simple. "My stepmom, Patricia. She told me that she and my dad were covering travel costs for all the wedding guests." The words came out fast, breathless. "She emailed me the ticket and said not to call the airline because it would mess up the group rate. I didn't. No, it wasn't real. I have the email as proof, I swear." I had shoved the printed itinerary into the female officer's hand. She glanced down at it, her eyes scanning the page, then looked back up at me. Her expression shifted, just slightly. It wasn't surprise. It was something closer to recognition, like she'd seen this before. "It looks like you've been scammed," she said quietly. "And it looks like the scammer is someone you know." Her words hit me with more force than I expected. It was one thing to feel uneasy, to have a gut instinct that something wasn't right. It was another thing entirely to hear it spoken, aloud. "So, I can't get on the flight?" I asked. My voice was thinner now. My chest felt heavy and my mouth was dry. "Not with that ticket," she said, gently but firmly. "If you still want to go, you'll need to buy another one." "Okay," I said quickly. "How much is that?" She tapped something on her tablet, brows furrowed. A second later, she glanced back up. "One way is $800. $800? It might as well have been $8,000. I didn't have it. Rent was due in a few days. My medical insurance was on autopay. My savings were already thinner than I liked. "I can't," I whispered, the words catching in my throat. "I really can't." They nodded with sympathy and didn't press. The officers took my statement, asked a few more questions, then handed me a printed incident report and told me I was free to go. I walked away slowly, my suitcase rattling behind me. I found a bench by the tall windows overlooking the runway and sat down. I could feel the pressure in my chest starting to build. Anger, humiliation, sadness. A tight knot of feelings that made it hard to breathe. Outside, planes were lifting into the air one after another, streaking off to destinations all over the country. People going to see family, friends reuniting, vacationers off to somewhere warm and bright, ceremonies, celebrations, all the things I was about to miss. I sat there, hands resting on the handle of my suitcase, just staring. My phone buzzed in my lap. A message from my dad. "Can't wait to see you later, Izzy." It broke me a little. For a second, I smiled instinctively, like I always did when he called me that. But then the smile faded as quickly as it had come. I looked at the screen, thumb hovering over the keyboard. I could call him. I could explain everything that had just happened. But what would that fix? The ceremony was only hours away. There was absolutely no way I could afford to be there now. He was probably in the middle of family photos or dealing with a dozen last-minute wedding issues. I didn't want to ruin his day with this. Not right now. Not this. Instead, I opened my contacts and scrolled down to Susanna, my dad's sister, my aunt. The one person in the family who always told the truth, even when no one wanted to hear it. She had never liked Patricia, but she was careful. She never said too much unless she was sure. I opened a message window and started typing, then deleted it. Typed again, deleted it again. I didn't even know what to say. Then my phone buzzed again. A new message, this time from Patricia. Her name lit up my screen like a warning light. The message was short, just a single sentence. "Oh, you're really not coming? Too bad, Isabel. At least your dad will know that you ignored our invitation and that you don't respect the both of us." I stared at it, my fingers frozen, and just like that, it all clicked. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't bad luck. This wasn't a travel agent's error or a mix-up with the airline. Patricia had done this on purpose. She had sent me a fake ticket. She had made sure I couldn't call the airline. She had crafted the perfect excuse, protecting the group, rate, so I wouldn't ask questions. She had counted on me being polite, on me not pushing back. She had wanted me out of that room, out of that day. And now she had the audacity to frame my absence as a choice. I felt the sting of tears pushing forward, hot and sharp. For a second, I actually considered just turning off my phone, blocking her number, and going to cry in the airport bathroom, until I could pull myself together. But then I pictured my dad, standing at the front of the ceremony, under those string lights he had told me about on the phone, the ones he remembered from my childhood. I saw him scanning the crowd for me, looking out over rows of chairs expecting to catch my eye, and not finding me. I imagined Patricia beside him, leaning in quietly, her voice low and sweet and full of lies. No, not this time. I opened my email app and pulled up the original message Patricia had sent, the one with the fake e-ticket and that line about the group rate. I hit forward and typed in my dad's email address. Then I opened my photos and attached the picture of the incident report the airport security officers had given me. Finally, I took a screenshot of the text I had sent weeks ago, thanking him and Patricia for the ticket. The proof was all there. I didn't write anything else in the message. I didn't explain or defend myself. I just hit send. Now, I was certain that Patricia had replied to my message, not my dad. The tone, the timing, the wording, it was unmistakably her. She had hijacked the situation and twisted it into something else. Something ugly. My fingers hovered above the screen for a moment as I tried to find the words to say what I was feeling. Finally, I typed, "Dad, I wanted to be there more than anything. I wanted to stand by your side and be right there when you said your vows. Patricia sent me a fake ticket. Airport police got involved. I have the report. I'm so sorry." I hit send and stared at my screen, bracing myself for his response, bracing for anger or worse, silence. 15 minutes passed, then my phone rang. It wasn't my dad, it was Susanna. "Where are you, Izzy?" she asked the second I answered. Her voice was fast, low, and urgent. "Still at the airport," I said. "Do you know if Dad got my email?" "Oh, he got it, honey," she said, her voice quieter now, softer but full of something I couldn't name yet. "Izzy, he went white, completely white. He was in the middle of his vows. He'd insisted on keeping his phone on him, said he had to in case you called. When your email came through, he read it. Right there." My heart pounded. "He pulled out his phone and showed the groomsman your message," Susanna continued. "The screenshot, the police report, everything. He didn't say a word to Patricia at first. He just walked away, straight out of the ceremony. He's calling you now." Before I could even react, my phone flashed. My dad's name lit up the screen. I quickly switched calls. "Dad, where are you?" His voice was steady, but I could hear the tension in it. That tight edge he always had when he was trying to hold himself together in public. "Still at the airport," I said. "I tried, Dad. The ticket wasn't real. Security got involved. They said it was fraud. I sent you everything." "I saw, baby," he said. And I heard the breath he let out, sharp and shaky. "I'm so sorry, Izzy, I should have." "It's not your fault," I said quickly. I didn't want him blaming himself for what Patricia had done. This wasn't his burden to carry. "I'll call you right back," he said, then hung up. Later, Aunt Susanna filled me in on everything I had missed. Right after seeing my message and the attached report, my dad had gone straight to Patricia. He didn't pull her aside quietly. He didn't wait until guests had gone home. He confronted her right there, loud enough for people nearby to hear every word. "You tried to humiliate my daughter on our wedding day," he told her, his voice clear and sharp. "You forged travel documents, you embarrassed my child in public, we're done here." Patricia's eyes filled with tears, but her voice was cold, clipped, and defensive. "I was testing her commitment to this family, Jonathan," she snapped. "She never ever tried with me. The only thing you tested was my commitment to you," he replied, and then laughed once, short, bitter, humorless. "And you failed. Miserably." The ceremony never continued. Half of the guests, mostly from my dad's side of the family, followed him out of the venue. They didn't hesitate. They left the decorations and the music and whatever speeches had been prepared. Together, they walked across the street to a restaurant where they turned what should have been a wedding reception into an impromptu family dinner. Aunt Susanna FaceTimed me in from the table. She propped up her phone so everyone could see me. One by one, relatives leaned toward the screen, offering smiles, words of comfort, virtual hugs. "We know you tried, Isabel," one of my aunts said. "I'm just glad the truth finally came out," said one of my uncles. I smiled and nodded, overwhelmed by their support. It felt good to be seen, to be believed. But it was also a strange kind of ache, to be so close and still so far away. I was just a face on a screen, pixels at a table where I should have been sitting in person. That night, after the guests went home and everything had settled into silence again, my dad called me from his car. His voice no longer had that sharp, public restraint. The edge had softened, replaced with something quieter and more certain. "I talked to the venue manager," he said. "I want to get some money back from this mess. We paid for a ceremony. That didn't happen." I hesitated. "Dad, I don't want to be the reason your wedding day was ruined." There was a pause. Then he replied, "Baby, Patricia is the reason everything was ruined," he said, voice steady. "You're the reason it didn't become a lie. This would have been a failed marriage, doomed from the moment we said our vows. I didn't want to see it before, but now I do." The next 2 days were a blur. My phone didn't stop buzzing. Calls, messages, check-ins from cousins and aunts, and even a few of my dad's friends who had been there. The stories started pouring in. One uncle told me that after I didn't show, Patricia had claimed I'd refused the ticket, that I'd changed my mind at the last second and faked the report to cover for it. "She made it sound like you were trying to sabotage her," he said. "But that story didn't hold up once your dad showed us the screenshots." A cousin told me later that Patricia's side of the family had stayed at the bar after everything happened. They acted like nothing was wrong. No questions, no drama, just drinks and polite conversation, as if the groom walking out mid-ceremony wasn't worth acknowledging. By the next day, my dad called again. This time, his voice was more settled, more certain. He'd spoken to a lawyer. "The lawyer says, we can annul it," he said. "Since the registration happened the day before the ceremony and everything else unfolded the next afternoon, we moved fast enough, and we have proof." I told him I was okay. And to my surprise, I really was. I'd been humiliated in public, questioned at an airport, and made to feel like I didn't belong. But in private, I had been believed. The people who mattered, the ones who knew me, stood with me. It was a strange mix of emotions. One part of me wanted to crawl away and hide from the embarrassment, the mess, the memory of standing alone at that airport desk. But another part of me was proud that I spoke up, that I didn't let her win quietly. Then more details started to surface. We learned that Patricia had done something similar in the past, years ago, with a former partner's adult children. That time, it hadn't gone as far. No forged documents, no security involvement, but the intent had been there, to isolate, to test, to twist a situation in her favor and blame the fallout on someone else. Word spread quickly. People talk. They always do, especially when the truth finally cracks open. Two of Patricia's closest friends, including the one who had stood beside her as maid of honor, stopped answering her calls. It turns out forging travel documents is a line most people won't cross for you. My dad canceled the honeymoon. He didn't hesitate. But then he rebooked the trip, not as a couple's getaway, but as a father-daughter vacation. We'll make up for lost time, he said. We talked during that trip the way we used to when he drove me to school. As a kid, radio turned low, conversation easy and natural. He asked about my job, my apartment, my car. He wanted to know how I was really doing. And in return, I asked him something that had been sitting in the back of my mind for a while. Do you ever feel like getting older means relearning boundaries? You should have already known. He thought for a second. Then he said, sometimes, and sometimes the boundary isn't for them. It's for the version of you that kept trying to be polite while getting hurt. Those words stayed with me. I thought back to that moment at the airport desk, to the way the officer had looked at me with quiet sympathy and said I'd been scammed by someone I knew. I thought about Patricia's message, trying to make my absence look like a choice. And then I remembered the moment I decided to hit send on the email to my dad, right in the middle of the ceremony. I didn't know it then, but that choice changed everything. Patricia had counted on me staying silent. She forgot who raised me. When we got back from the trip, my dad hosted a family dinner. It was simple, just a warm meal, a full table, and everyone who had stood by us when things fell apart. At the end of the evening, he stood up and lifted his glass of iced tea. To Isabel, he said, smiling, for telling the truth, and to a future where we don't ignore our instincts just to keep the peace. People clapped. I laughed and cried at the same time. It felt like something closing, a bad chapter ending, and something else beginning, something better. Patricia only reached out to me once after everything. She sent a single text. I never meant to hurt you, Isabel, but you made me look terrible in front of everyone. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I put my phone down. I didn't reply, because sometimes silence is the clearest sentence you can write.